The 1979 ideological shift in Iran pushed Pakistan closer towards Saudi Arabia and the Arab world.
Revolution in Iran has not shifted us towards Saudi Arabia. Supporting the Afghan Mujahideens, Iranis didn't oppose it. They didn't create a disturbance for us.
In January 2024, Pakistan and Iran had a missile exchange briefly in Balochistan.
There is some miscreants who are going to destroy our relationship.
How will Pakistan manage its relationship with the China, the United States, Saudi Arabia, and especially Iran, while being pulled between competing interests?
Pakistan is walking on the tightrope. I'm not looking towards the east, where we have a neighbor which was beaten by us. The era of appeasement is over.
Hello and welcome to another episode. Today we are joined by Dr. Zafar Nawaz Jaspal. He is a prominent Pakistani scholar of international relations and strategic affairs. He is a professor of international politics at the Quaid-e-Azam University, and he is widely known for his work on Pakistan's foreign policy, South Asian security, and regional security dynamics. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum assalam.
So thank you so much for joining. Today we are going to discuss the Pakistan-Iran relations over the decades. I will start with 1947 because Iran was the first country to recognize Pakistan in 1947, and both the countries were aligned in the Western Bloc and later in alliances like CENTO. Just briefly tell us that what were the key cultural, geopolitical, and security factors that defined the early ties between Pakistan and Iran.
Thank you very much for the invitation. When we critically examine Pakistan's relations and in the historical context, naturally we generally see that from the independence of Pakistan since 1947, August 14. But we have to not forget Iran, historically, we have a very strong linkages. And when we trace our history, there are many things. Even if I can just give you one example, Urdu. And Urdu is a product of Farsi. Of course, we call it is a language of what we call it armed forces or imperial armed forces because there were a number of the languages mixture. But Farsi was the court language, and it was, or it is still taught in a number of our schools. So even if you see Allama Iqbal, who is the, you can say, national poet, his entire best, you can say, poetry is in the Farsi. And then if you go to the Tehran, you would find a big Iqbal kind of a center or all these kind of things. I still recall once the Iranian president was visiting Pakistan and he made a speech, and his speech gave me at that time an impression that he was praising Allama Muhammad Iqbal and his poetry and his work in a manner that I start saying to my next person who was sitting beside me that I'm confused whether Allama Sahib was our poet or it's a poet of the Iranians. So that is a kind of thing which you have to sense. Then we have a political, that's of course political when we talk about after the birth of Pakistan. And you rightly pointed one of the countries which considered Pakistan as an independent state, whereas in our neighborhood, if you see that our borders were, you can say, crafted by the empires like British Empire, colonial empire. But luckily, Iran was not under any colonial rule, established state. That's why our border was set, but they recognized it. But if you see on the Afghanistan, there was a issue. On the Indian side, there was an issue because of the Khan Bharat and because of the Duran line of the Afghanistan. So this was, and even with the China, whichever we have it, border, it was settled in 1963. So it means that it was only a settled area. And then you can look about the religion. I have nothing to talk about. Everyone know that how much religious affinity or all these kind of things. Then if you can go from the religion, as I said, political, strategic, that is important. And you mentioned by yourself, we were in the Western alliances in the beginning. We were working together. Basically, we were very much what you call it, you can say, communist regime. We were working there. And here, let me make it one thing clear. We were so confident that we don't have even, we have established core, Quetta core, and knowingly that this part of the militarily very significant, this train, but we didn't make it like a core. We were keeping it with a small arms, something like that in the beginning years. It was recently we went for Southern Command or these kind of things and build up these core. Why? Because we never felt threat from the Iranian side. And militarily, we were very cooperative, and the Iranians assisted us whenever there was India's aggression against us. And we also cooperated. Then we have a, what you call it, our Baloch. I can just give you one example. In our
Okay.
Balochistan, there is a big tribe, which we call it Hasni tribe. And across the border, on the other side, there are two provinces, which are again a Baloch ethnicity. There they call it Rigi tribe. So if you go, so there are many ways to link, which we call it historical, political, economic, strategic, religious, cultural, environmental, all kind of the linkages are there. When I use the word environment, it means if any environmental change is coming on there, it has an impact on Pakistan or something like that. So we cannot ignore the historical linkages and the way they are, you can say, contributing into the modern time or contemporary and will be driving us towards the future because if you have to understand the state relations or current situation of Pakistan, I appreciate your this question that we must understand what is the background and how we have evolved. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, moving forward to the 1979 Iranian Revolution, when that transformed Tehran's outlook towards the region and anti-Americanism and Islamic governance, how did that ideological shift affect the relationship between Pakistan and Iran?
It was a political, ideological, you can say, shift, and
Okay.
it was a very much because there was a revolution. Whenever the revolution comes, uh, exporters of the revolutions are always there. And when there are
True.
exporters of the revolutions, naturally you will find that where are the pockets. And we have to make a distinction that Iranian leadership attitude towards Pakistan and the Pakistani leadership on that. And at that time, of course, the Iranians were very much upset with the Americans after the 1979 revolution. And we were already dragged into a war because of the 1979 invasion of the Russians into the Afghanistan. And we have to understand or fight a war, what we call it, whether we can fight this war on our border, you can escalating into our country, or we can fight a war away from our border. So we started working on it, and we fought with the Russians inside the Afghanistan, and we supported what we call it Mujahideen, and our allies supported us, and as a result, we defended our country in that manner. Whatever the narratives were there, it was entirely different. But on the other side, we did not, you can say, ignore what the political ideological changes were taking place in the Iranian society, in the Iranian polity. I can let me use the correct word. And but President Zia and the President Imam Khomeini, they maintain a contact, but we can say they were bumpy relations because Iran-Iraq war started, and in the
Yes.
Iran-Iraq war, Iran had some expectations maybe, but they also understood that we had a good relations with Iraq as well. So in that Iran-Iraq war, we tried to maintain our neutrality, but wherever it was possible, at the humanitarian or other side, we were cooperating. But we can say, naturally, when you are a neighbor, we had some bumpy relations. So there were ups and downs. So I can say that in the beginning of the revolutionary era, it was a lot of, you can say, ups and downs. But if it was not, we never have a bad time where we were not
Okay.
having, or we lack a trust, or we have a mistrust. But of course, you know that there was a problem. The era of 70s, late 70s and early 80s, if you see,
Yes.
it was an era in the entire Islamic world, it was some kind of a revivalism. And that revivalism, when they economically in the Arab world, because of the post OPEC and oil revolution, and there was a revivalism ideological in the Iran because of the revolution and in
Mm.
other state, and then was the Afghan war. It was a very, you can say, interesting time or a critical time for the Muslim Ummah, and as a result, sectarianism was exploited. So we had a lot of sectarian crises in the 90s, early 80s onward, and some kind of these things have also, you can say, hit our cordial relations with the Iran. But we managed it well, both sides, and the sectarian, though even I say today, though we are controlling it, the government of Pakistan is successful in that. But sectarian cancer, I can use a word, the sectarian cancer was ripe in that time, at that time, which had influenced Pakistan-Iran relations, but not deteriorated much where we can say, oh, there is a cutoff or no, there was no deadlock.
Okay. Sir, you talked about the post 1979 period and the early 1980s, how the ideological shifts happened. I really want you to shed some light on that. The 1979 ideological shift in Iran pushed Pakistan closer towards Saudi Arabia and the Arab world. What were the societal shifts? One, you have mentioned that sectarianism, but what other societal shifts that occurred in Pakistan due to this change in geopolitical realities of the region at that time?
Let me make it one thing very clear. Uh, the revolution in Iran has not shifted us towards Saudi Arabia. This is an incorrect perception in the literature. You can't say that on a sectarian platter we will be. With the Saudi Arabia, when we trace the history of the relationship, we had even, I can just give you a bit, one word, sentence, permit me, that when 1947, prior to the independence, there was in the UN, there was a meeting, and delegation of the Muslim League visited there, and Saudis arranged all the meetings and records. So it means that prior to the former independence, we were having a diplomatic cooperation, coordination with the Saudis. So we cannot, in this context, simply say that it was later on. And our relationship with the Saudi Arabia continued. And if you see, it was natural with Iran and with the Saudi Arabia or with the Arab world, because of our religious, like Khana Kaaba, Masjid Nabawi, in these countries, Iraq or the Iran, the other ziyarat. So we had something like this, which can be. But in 1970s, when there was a oil boom in the Arab world, and then the, you can say, Iranian Revolution, this ideological conflict started with the Saudis and the Iranians. Naturally, it had an impact in the entire world. So by this way, it did not, you can say, make us something. And with the Saudi Arabia or with the Arab world, we started something like engaging them in the military cooperation, the training cooperation. And when they got the money, they start looking with us towards us for support. And with the Iranians, if you see, at the same time, there were many culture, even Khana Farhang or these kind of things. But these two countries have a problem, and it's still there till the 2023 when there was a rapprochement. Sometimes they have ups and downs, something like those. I'm not going into that detail, but that has an impact not on our. I can put like this way briefly: that conflict or their competition or whatever you can use a name or ideological divergency, that has an impact on our society, not on the Islamabad Tehran or Islamabad Riyadh relations. So that is my point. Of course, many people have a different point, but I do agree with this assumption that it has an impact on our society, and within the society there were, you can say, groups like Lashkar Jangvi, Jaish Muhammad, or on the other side, by Sahaba. Basically, these groups emerged because of the war in the Afghanistan, and because of this, you can say, tussle between them and flow of the money. And at that time, government failed to check this because money was coming from the newly rich Arab in the name of zakat or other, and also from the Iranian side. And here people were competing. So we became some kind of a turf to fight by these religious proxies in Pakistan. But I cannot say 100%, but we maintain a cordial relations with the Tehran as well as Riyadh.
Very right. Sir, in the start of your discussion, you mentioned about the Soviet-Afghan War. My question is that during the Soviet war in Afghanistan, Tehran and Islamabad found both cooperation and competition. How did overlapping interests in Afghanistan and shifting security alliances impact Pakistan-Iran ties in that period?
It was, I think, at that time, Iranians were equally concerned. They were not welcoming the Soviets. They
Hmm.
had a revolutionaries have some kind of a contacts with them, but for them, for a revolution regime, it was also an atheist regime, or you can say un-Islamic regime, or Soviet thinking that was not acceptable. Second, you have to keep in mind Iran has a long civilization. They start tracing from the Persia or Babylon or these things, and they know about their security very well. Diplomatically, they are very mature, and in that context, they understood even at that time that Soviets on their border is not acceptable. So I think what the strategic community of Pakistan was at that time thinking, the same thinking was in Tehran. I mean, the strategic pundits of the Iranians were also thinking that as much as Afghanistan remained a buffer between them and former Soviet Union Russia, it's in their interest. That's why they welcomed the Afghan Muhajirin, and still they are facing. Wherever these Afghan Muhajirin went, we bear bigger burden, and Iranians also bear the burden. And I think there was a convergence. And that's why when we were supporting the Afghan Mujahideens, Iranians didn't oppose it. They didn't create a disturbance for us. And they were also equally, basically, the entire world in a different manner was supporting the Afghans, though the Afghans think that they were the best fighter. No, they was the entire Muslim world, especially Pakistan, and then Iran, they were supportive to them. Maybe the Iranians have a lesser because there was the problem between the Taliban in the 90s and Iranians started when the Taliban uh, I can use it, it's not a correct, but I should say near massacre of the Afghan Shias in the, what we call it, this areas when these Taliban's raided there. Uh, uh, some of them are also in our Quetta as well, who are always become a victim of these Lashkar Jangvi or these kind of thing. So that was, but I think on that war, at a basic line, there was a consensus.
Okay. Sir, coming towards the present or the current scenario, in January 2024, Pakistan and Iran had a missile exchange briefly in Balochistan. But since the June 2025 Iran-Israel 12-day war, uh, we have seen an improvement in the Pakistan-Iran relations. So much so that Iranian government accepted Pakistan as the neutral mediator between the U.S., Israel, and Iran war. So much so that after the ceasefire, the people in the streets of Iran are chanting the slogans of "Shukriya Pakistan," "Thank you Pakistan," and they're waving the Pakistani flags. How has this major change come about in the last 2 years?
Look, we have I can say this strikes January 2024, you mentioned it correctly.
Hmm. Yes.
There were some strikes by the Iranian side inside of Pakistan, and then we retaliated in the same manner, and we had identified some Baloch, you can say, militants, and strike them. We have to not forget it's a border area, as I've said, on both sides there are. So that was a few hours bad patch. And it was a
Okay.
shift in Pakistan's, I can trace a remarkable shift in Pakistan's foreign strategic policy, let me put like this, a strategic policy. Uh,
Okay.
the Field Marshal Asim Munir became at that time Chief of Armed Forces, Chief of Army, and armed forces had also made it clear that the era of appeasement has over. So I can think that in 2024, it was a remarkable shift in Pakistan's foreign and strategic policy in a manner that we said that the era of appeasement is over. Anyone who violate our border, we will be going to retaliate. Pakistan's national security will be not compromised. This is my reading of the, I am not giving, this is my understanding as a student of international or strategic study. So when they cross the border, they strike, and we retaliated, though it was a very restrained. And then Islamabad and Tehran realized that there is some miscreants who are going to destroy our relationship. I think that because initiative was from the Iranian side and then we retaliated, then Iranians did a very good, you can say, quickly. They controlled the situation. And it was a response from the Pakistani side as well. I still recall that the former ambassador of Pakistan in Iran at that was the uh, Mr. Qureshi, and he was uh, at that time in Foreign Office of Pakistan, and he immediately contacted there, and he played a very good role, and other diplomats of Pakistani, excellent diplomats of Pakistan, they also created played a very good role. So our Foreign Office immediately became active, and as a result, Iranian Foreign Minister, you can say, uh, reached Pakistan. As a result, we find that instead of escalation, de-escalation took place. And then we have seen the uh, Iranian president also visited Pakistan, and we can find that there are a number of the activities. And then our relationship has been institutionalized in a manner that such incident shall not take place in future. And I've noticed that from January 2024 to date, there is no incident where Iranians or the Pakistanis, you can say, question the negative intentions, or you can question the intentions of the other side. So I can say that it was just maybe it was a miscalculation from the, but you have to praise the Foreign Office of Pakistan and the Foreign Ministry of Iran that how quickly they assess the situation, manage the situation, resolve the conflict, and later on, I seen it that our relation, such a conflicts were transformed in a manner that later on, as you rightly pointed in 2025, they appreciated us. And so it means within 1 year, both states have moved from a conflict management to conflict resolution to the conflict transformation. That is the outcome.
Okay. From this day onwards, how will Pakistan manage its relationship with the China, the United States, Saudi Arabia, and especially Iran, while being pulled between competing interests?
Yeah, this is a very, you can say, Pakistan is walking on the tightrope.
Okay.
And in this context, our leadership, I mean that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, Foreign Minister Dar Saab, and the Field Marshal Asim Munir Saab, they played very well.
Okay.
And if I can see in the last, let's say I put like this way, since May 2025,
Yes.
these three leaders and Foreign Office of Pakistan,
Okay.
they are all walking on a triangular tightrope, externally, I mean at the global level as well as at the regional.
Okay.
At the global level, they are maintaining a very good rapport with the President Trump. That means with the United States. Excellent rapport with the President Xi, and
Yes.
very trustworthy relationship with President Putin.
Okay.
My leaders were sitting in the White House in the late August, and enjoying discussions with President Trump. And from there, next following days, they in the first week of September, they were sitting in Beijing. They were participating in the Millennium, what we call 80th anniversary of parade in near Beijing, where the Putin, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, President Xi came on of the North Korea, President of Iran. and supporting in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, President Xi's, you can say, global governance initiative. Then we have seen we were in touch with the Russians, and if this war did not happen on 28th February, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif had a scheduled visit to the Moscow. So it means triangular tightrope, and these three great powers are competing with each other because there is a multipolarity today. There is not a unipolarity. And we are
Right.
wanted guest in all three capitals. Now comes towards the region. Pakistan is a legitimate, or whether we like it or not, we are a part of West Asian or Persian, Arabian Gulf, or whatever you name this Middle Eastern, part of their security architecture. Now, here again, we have a tightrope walking. We have I'm not looking towards the east, where we have a neighbor which was beaten by us, and still it is, you can say, just propagating, doing nothing. Leave aside. We have a
Yes.
tightrope walking in this context. First is that we have a relation with the Saudi Arabia. As I said, historically, to date, good relations. Then we
Okay.
have Iran, and then we have Afghanistan as well. We wanted to maintain a good relations with Afghanistan. And we
Okay.
think that so we are maintaining Afghans across the limits, and in 26 February, now they are desiring what we were asking them. They are ready to go, but let's see. And then within this side, this Middle Eastern triangle, UAE is also an independent, try to act as an independent actor. So we're maintaining with the good relations. So coming towards today, I think Pakistan has demonstrated maintaining its cordial relations with all these capitals or a leadership. That's why we were firm. We were saying openly American Israeli aggression against Iran was unlawful. We were openly saying Iran's attack on the Saudi Arabia or other Arab states is unlawful. We were supporting those resolutions which were legitimately correct at the United Nations, and we were opposing it. As a result, we maintained the trust and we brokered the ceasefire yesterday morning, our
Yes.
Prime Minister announced. So it confirms, and I think we must be confident as a Pakistanis and as a analyst. I am very much, you can say, optimistic that my leadership is mature enough to maintain these balancing acts and maintain a firm, you can stances, and we have a courage to do it. If somebody is criticizing us, you can make 100, you can say criticisms against the leadership of this, but now everyone is talking about Pakistan's goodwill, demonstration, and courage. And please keep in mind, Pakistan generally said the fifth biggest country in the world population, but it is now becoming a fourth. It's a nuclear power. We have beaten 7 times bigger state when they cross the
Oh.
limit. It means that we have a potential.
Okay, so sir, basically you are also saying that Pakistan has a very bright future in managing its relationship with all of these major nations, like you named them, UAE, China, Saudi Arabia, United States. So, do you foresee a very fruitful future for Pakistan and for Pakistan's own interests?
I'm very much optimistic, and I'm
Okay.
seeing very fruitful future. But please keep in mind, short term, you have a what you call it solutions like painkillers. This country has been in this war zone, in a state of war since 1979. First,
Yes.
Russians created this environment, some former Soviet Russia, then the Americans. And when world has moved towards the multipolarity, state on state wars have revisited the world. We are still, you can say, fighting a state on state war as well as state on non state war. State on non state wars are now diminishing. I mean, war on terrorism is over, but we are still fighting and we are facing, because unfortunately the war on terrorism was in our neighborhood and we were part and parcel of it. So that's why, so we suffered, are still suffering. And even this the current war, which we brokered the ceasefire yesterday, it had a political, economic, strategic repercussions, catastrophic repercussions for us because we are a neighbor of it. And again, our other neighbors, good states, were stuck with it. And we had to play a role of a mediator. So we have a lot of challenges. In these challenges, definitely we are stewarding ourselves well. If you are living, even in Americans who maintain a military operation sort of thing in Afghanistan for 20 years, they were shocked. For a one war of 39 days, they were just conducting military operation. Their people were not vulnerable. What happened in
Yes.
America? There were demonstrations. It's a resilience of this Pakistani society, state, that still this kind of the wars we are surviving, and I'm very much optimistic after this peace. Definitely, we have a good era.
Okay. I'll wrap it up here, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Jaspal, for joining us today and sharing your valuable insights with us.
Thank you very much, Ji. It's my
Thank you
pleasure
so
to be
much.
on your channel.
Thank you.